Hey guys, welcome back. Thanks for joining me on today's episode. Today, we are going to be starting a video series on vehicle maintenance. I have to do some maintenance on my trucks, and I thought I would bring you guys along with me, show you what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. So, it's time for us to go ahead, roll up our sleeves, and get our hands dirty. I'm going to include some links over here that you can go ahead and click on at any time to start the videos. For those of you who are mobile users, you're not going to see anything over here. So I'm going to put the links down in the description down below. Go ahead and click on one of those and we'll get started right away. Did you click on it? Alright, well if you're not going to click on it, then I'm going to go ahead and start. Stay with me guys, I'll show you what I'm up to. Hey guys, thanks for joining me on today's episode. Today we're going to be taking care of changing the oil on this truck. We're going to be topping off some of the other fluids, checking the tire pressure, and doing the necessary preventative maintenance to keep this truck alive and going on the road. Stay with me, I'll show you what I'm up to. Now before we go under the truck and get into the nitty gritty, we're going to go ahead and pull this dipstick out just a little bit so it allows the oil to flow out of the oil plug hole a little bit more easily. So, with the engine oil dipstick pulled out just a little bit, I got about 6 inches out, we're going to go ahead and jack the truck up. Now I'm a fairly large guy and I need to be able to get under this truck to be able to take the oil plug out of the oil pan and let the old oil drain out. In order to do that, I'm going to have to jack this truck up. There are some things that you need to do for safety as you do this, so make sure you watch close and pay attention as I take care of this, and you can do what I do. Or don't do what I do. Do what I do, not what I say. Do what I say, not what I do. Anyway, just pay attention and watch what I'm doing. Now as we go ahead and jack this vehicle up, we're going to want to make sure we're on something solid. I am jacking up on the front axle on the cross member. That's a good solid point. That'll give me a good spot to lift on the vehicle. It'll lift the vehicle up evenly if you are in the middle. And I just need enough room that I can get under here to work. Okay, that's up as far as we need to go. Let me get the jack stands. Now I have these set right on the front of the actual frame of the truck, so that's a good solid point to be able to rest this truck on. Now you're going to want to make sure that you lower this down slowly, just in case your jack stands aren't right where they need to be. Okay, we're clear. Okay guys, we're now on the underside of the truck. We're going to go find the oil plug, take our wrench, and open up that oil plug. Remember, righty tighty, lefty loosey. Now on my vehicle, once I loosen it up just a little bit, it's only going to be finger tight. So I'm going to go ahead, put my wrench down, grab my test can for my oil, get that positioned underneath, and remove my plug. If you've been driving your vehicle before you go and take the oil out, the oil will be hot. So don't let it dump on you, on your hand, or anything else. You could get scalded. Okay, oil plug is out. I have the oil plug right here. Oil is draining. I'm going to go ahead, back up to the front of the truck, and try to locate the oil filter. Now that the oil being drained out of the pan has slowed down to a mere drip, I'm going to go ahead and lightly reinsert the oil plug just to keep oil from dripping on my floor as I pull this oil catch pan up to where the oil filter is. I'm now on the floor between the two jack stands that are holding the front of my truck up. Let me show you where my oil filter is. As we look up and under, my oil filter is right there. It's that white thing that you're seeing, right next to the main crankshaft, and it's got a little chute right there that comes down to help direct the oil as it flows out so it doesn't flow onto the axle and CV joints and all. Now you're going to have to accept my apology in advance. There is no good angle for me to try to get my camera under here to show you guys clearly what I'm doing. What I am doing is unthreading the oil filter from the engine. I have my oil filter wrench here, which is designed to wrap around, and as you put tension on it, it shrinks down the size of the band, clasping around the oil filter and helping turn the oil filter in the direction you want it to go. I'm going to go ahead and get that turned before I end up getting a Charlie horse for being cramped up under here. Now you're going to want to make sure you have your oil collection pan real close by. Mine's right here. So I got to reach up in here, Put my oil filter wrench on the oil filter, tighten it down, and then turn it. Alright, I got a turn on it. And it's going to be finger tight from there. So I'm going to go ahead, set down my wrench, get my oil pan, collection pan, up and under here where I want it, so that I don't get covered in oil. And then I'm going to be able to reach up in there, and by hand, I'm going to be able to turn this oil filter right off of the engine. Remember, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey still applies. Now remember, when this oil filter comes off, it will be full of oil. So don't just let it go and fall down, otherwise you may catch a lot of oil right in the head. I'm going to go ahead and dump that right in that chute, so I can slide that filter out of here. Okay, oil filter is off. Once you get your oil filter off your vehicle, you're going to want to double check the numbers on your old oil filter and make sure they match the numbers on your new oil filter. For me, L14670. L14670. Same filter right there. Now I'm going to go ahead and get ready to put this filter back on, but first there's a little trick that you got to know about. With a new oil filter, there's a rubber gasket that goes around. This needs to seal up tight against the engine because this is going to be having oil pumped through it at pressure, and you don't want this to leak. How you're going to go about making this happen is you're going to take a little bit of the old oil that you just took out of your vehicle on your finger and rub it around that ring just so that this seats up against the engine block the way it's supposed to. Okay, you can see that the entire surface is now covered in oil on that gasket. We're ready to put this on. We're now going to take the oil plug out of the back just one more time to let any of the extra oil that's accumulated there out. While that's draining, I'm going to go ahead and clean up the leftover oil that's here on the chute, on the drain chute. It's just so I'm not leaking oil out in the driveway or on the parking lot. And now that we're done in the front of the truck, we're going to go ahead and turn our attention back to the oil plug. Okay. We now have the oil plug here. We're going to go ahead and reinsert that into the hole. Make sure you don't cross thread it. It'll go in only by finger. You don't have to force it. If you have to force it, something's not right. So now it's finger tight. We're going to go ahead and wipe the oil off of that just to clean it up a bit. Now we're going to take the same wrench that we used to take that oil plug out, and we're going to put that oil plug back in. Now remember, it doesn't have to be super tight. Just a bump will do you. Okay, that's it. We're ready to add oil. We are now done under the truck, so we're going to go ahead, jack the truck up, take these jack stands out, get the truck back on the floor, and attend to everything on the top side. Slow and easy, down we go. Now that we have the oil drained out and the truck back on the floor, we're turning our attention to the top side and checking and re-adding fluids as necessary. Now, one thing I've found over the years is as I'm leaning over the fenders of the trucks and the cars, my belt buckle, my button on my pants, my zipper rub on the paint on the outside of the fender. We want to protect the paint on our vehicles so that they aren't prone to rust and all that other type of stuff, plus unsightly wear. So what I do now is I take these little moving blankets and I drape them over the sides of my fender just to keep from my belt buckles and whatnot scratching up the fenders. Some people have a misconception of where the oil has to go in the vehicle. It doesn't have to go down that little dipstick hole. There's another fill area someplace on the engine, and for me it's right in front of the dipstick area. And it tells me right on there what motor oil I'm supposed to be using. On mine it says use 5W30 engine oil. You want to stick to this because these vehicles can be very sensitive to the thickness of the motor oil, especially during cold weather season, which we're going into right now. I'm going to go ahead, push the dipstick back in, and take the oil fill cap off. Now we're going to go ahead and put the 6 quarts that this engine requires of 5W30 motor oil back into this engine. Now that we've added the necessary oil, we're going to go ahead and take this funnel out of here and and reattach the cap. Now we're going to go ahead, start up our engine, cycle the engine oil through, turn it off, and recheck the oil to make sure the level's where it's supposed to be on the dipstick. We're going to start the truck and make sure the oil pressure comes up like it's supposed to. We're good to go. We're now going to go ahead and pull the dipstick and check the engine oil level. First we got to take and clear it off from any of the oil that might have splashed up onto the dipstick. Then we're going to put the dipstick back in all the way, and then pull it back out to get an accurate reading on where we're at with engine oil. Now remember, I put 6 quarts of 5W30 in, and that's what the owner's manual said that I was supposed to put in. So let's just see where we're at. And there we have it, right in the middle of the safe zone like it's supposed to be. Now that we're done changing the oil, everything's taken care of, sealed up, ready to go, we're going to go ahead and turn our attention to the other fluids. In the last episode, we went ahead and checked the brake fluid and the transmission fluid. They were both clean and clear and at appropriate heights. However, we did find that our engine coolant, or radiator fluid, was on the add line down here on the side. Let me show you. It's a transparent jug, and I have a full line and an add line. And I am right down to the add line, so I'm going to need to add some engine coolant to my vehicle. So as you can see, it needed to be filled up, so we went ahead and we got some universal radiator fluid, which is acceptable per the manual for the truck. And we're going to go ahead and fill this up, top it off to the fill line. Now we're going to go ahead and add radiator fluid. It's easiest to try to use a funnel because trying to pour directly from the jug into the reservoir doesn't turn out well. So I've gone ahead, I cleaned out my funnel that I used for oil, got it there, and we're going to go ahead and add to the full line. Don't add any farther because then you'll end up having it boil over as your truck or car heats up. Now for our last order of business, we're going to go ahead and top off the washer fluid. Now this you can fill all the way to the top. Time for one last check before we close the hood. We're going to make sure all these tops are on tight. They're not going to come off, pop off, or end up leaking any fluids. We're set to go. We're taking the blanket off and closing the hood. Now remember, we took 6 quarts of oil out of the truck, and this is only a 5-quart container. So we don't want to overfill it and make a mess in the garage on the floor. So we're going to fill it as much as we're comfortable doing, and then add the rest of it to the second jug here to my left. Alright guys, that's all I got for today. We're all cleaned up and ready to go. So I'm going to say so long for now, and I hope to see you soon on my next episode. Until then, bye-bye.